I call this meeting to order at 5:31. All right, on to roll call. Aubrey is not here. Bjorn will come in later. I see Brandon, Deanna, Greg, Jess, Joey, Lacey, Messina, Sean, Terry, Eunice, and Zoe. And with that, can I entertain a motion to approve today's the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Brandon. Do I see a second?
Seconded.
All right. And for those not on the committee, please do not vote on the thing that's about to pop up. And motion passes. And now, can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of last week's meeting?
I moved.
Motion by Eunice. Any second?
Seconded.
By Messina. Thank you. All right, motion passes. All right, on to the reports. In terms of reports, I'd just like to remind everyone that sometimes it is a bit difficult to see questions. So if you do have a question, just remember you have an option to raise a digital hand, and we'll be able to see it easier that way. And with that, I'll move on to Brandon.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Just giving a quick update on the survey. I'm super happy with how it's been going. It'll be open till about March 12th, I believe. And so far we've gotten a bunch of responses. You know, I was shooting for like 150 and we have over 400 responses. So we got plenty of data to go through. Can't wait for it to pretty much close so we can start looking at the data and start messing with it, because that's when I have fun, start making like graphs and stuff, showing you all fun figures. But yeah, the gifts, they'll get mailed out when it closes. So pretty much the first week of spring quarter and over spring break is when those recipients get the gifts mailed out. But yeah, it's been really good and I'm super happy, and thank you all for, you know, getting the word out and all the support from admin with the survey so far. But yeah, just want to let you all know where we're at with it. And with that, I yield my time.
I will jump in. I apologize if my dog is barking in the background in a minute. We'll see. He was. First, and again, for the new comers who are presenting tonight, I appreciate you all for coming. I will let you know in advance on the side. I'll be kind of keeping track because you'll have 10 minutes to present. And so in the chat, I'll kind of give a 2-minute heads up and a 1-minute heads up the best I can. I say that because I know when you're presenting, you can't always see the chat, but as a way to somewhat give a heads up when we're getting close to time with that. The other part is you'll notice that we did move the other communications received up on the agenda. So that way I can share with you all early on, and so presenters can hear the questions, because that was a request as well of them wanting to know. And so we'll be going into that right after reports and have lots of them. Again, you all are doing a great job of asking the great questions you have. As updates, since again, we're in week 7, we have 2 more weeks after this of presentations, and then we will be going into deliberation. And so 2 things to kind of be on the lookout for is, 1, I am going to be having, working with Aubrey to have her send out to the committee kind of a survey poll based on the deliberation rubric that you all have electronically. And all that it's really going to be is for each of the funding requests, a breakdown of those 4 overall recommendation options. That's really all we're going to do ahead of time. So you'll go in on your own, You will vote for each one of them and say whether you believe to fully fund as requested, fund the program at a lower amount than requested, fund program at some level if possible, or do not fund, because that'll give us some starting off points when we get to deliberation. If you're all on the same page with ones, that speeds that up, but will give us some talking points. The other part is we currently have March 10th, our March 10th meeting for the start of deliberations. And I know I mentioned this at the beginning of the quarter. It is very highly likely and almost guaranteed that we are going to take more than that meeting to be able to fully deliberate on all of these requests and to get our recommendation out. So what that means is we will need to look at a time because we have until the end of finals week, which is the next week, to finalize all of our pieces. And so again, I'm going to work with Aubrey to send out some information to you all on the committee to look at potential available times. The hard part really is that we don't know how much time it's going to take. I will tell you, last time we did this 4 years ago, we had one session where we fully deliberated, and it was an 8 to 9 hour session that we did. Not to say that it will take that long, but to plan on that. So it may be something that weekend after the 10th that we look for availability, but do really kind of need it to be a priority for all of you on the committee to be there, because this is when we would be moving forward whatever recommendations and voting on that. So that will be coming out probably in the next week or so we can start identifying other times beyond March 10th for us to deliberate. So just to have a heads up with that. Otherwise, I'll yield to Lacey.
Great. So I'm going to share our Power BI tool that we've been looking at each week. As you can see, we are going to have 5 different presentations today. And actually, we don't have any new funding requests this week, so it's a little different than last week. But does anybody have any questions about the finances before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, well, just as a quick heads up is that actually almost all of them except for one are a flat request from the current funding cycle of fiscal 21. And so I'm sure they'll go dive into that in a little bit more detail once we get to that point. But that is all the reports that I have.
Thank you, Lacey. And then Joey, I believe you said you had communications received.
I do. We've heard back from most. I think there's one more unit from last week who is still working on getting us the answers, but I will make my way through all of the responses to questions that you all submitted as quickly as I can. Again, because it's a public meeting, we do kind of have to share it, so it's on here for the recording. You all on the committee will get sent this afterwards, as Aubrey has been sending for those who are not auditory to catch all of this. So with that said, I'll jump on to the first one. This one was in response to undergraduate research and source, their allocation request. So the question posed to them on here is, it looks like you all are currently projecting to have an available fund balance for source and Office of Undergraduate Research at the end of the year. Given that the S&A policies state that unspent funds automatically roll back to supplemental budget at the end of the funding cycle unless requested to keep, are you planning on requesting these funds remain in your budget? If so, for what purpose? Response we got back, we were in the process of writing S&A an email about this when you emailed. Great minds think alike. A large part of our extra funding comes from the fact that students haven't been able to do as much research and creative work during this academic year. So we'd like to create a grant to support mentored creative work or research worked over the summer. Believe that rolling over these extra funds and redirecting it to this effort would be a beneficiary use of these funds that will support the same efforts of promoting undergraduate research work that the funds are intended for this year and last. This will be a separate request just so the committee knows when we get to spring quarter for funds remaining within there. And so did provide a description of the grants that they're looking at, which we'll get into that. We understand the S&A funds are not able to support faculty component of that plan as we'll go into, so they're working with foundation. The next question, what are the roles of the 2 new student councils that they shared during their presentation? Response, I introduced the groups at the presentation to center the fact that Office of Undergraduate Research is working to become a visible leader on campus for undergraduate research, creative activities, and other out-of-class scholarship. Establishing these 2 groups, the Research Advisory Council and Undergraduate Research Group, should improve the campus support of research work done by students. and then did provide a little bit more of the information of each group for you all to reference later on as well, of those two. But that these groups are to reinforce that the undergraduate research is using a broad range of campus resources to guide the mission. We also appreciate that the source and undergraduate research grant committees continue to support and make decisions about these programs and provide continued support. Next question, will they steward the S&A base allocation? Talking about those groups specifically, will they steward those? No, these groups will support research endeavors on campus and make recommendations for undergraduate research work in general, but would not be responsible for any aspect of the budget. Those would remain the responsibility of the administrators and the grant and source committees. Will this new base funding request allow you to have enough fiscal flexibility to host a fall and spring symposium? The fall symposium was envisioned outside the spring source event. That said, Aaron assures me that the mix of virtual and other event opportunities should still be within the budget. That was our response from source. Next up on the docket, we did have a follow-up to the Sarah Spurgeon Art Gallery. And the question that really came following last week, the Sarah Spurgeon Art Gallery has held many displays and holds a mission similar to another base-funded area on campus that also displays art and brings in speakers. Can you tell me how the service is different? In our response from the Art Gallery, the Sarah Spurgeon Art Gallery has held many displays and holds a mission similar to another. Oh, that's the question. There are several differences between the Sarah Spurgeon Art Gallery and the Museum of Culture and Environment. Sarah Spurgeon is in the Department of Art and Design, whereas the MCE is in the Department of Anthropology. The mission, vision, and value statements of the MCE do not mention art. Their current statement reads, the CWU Museum of Culture and Environment works with diverse communities to create opportunities for lifelong learning that foster self-discovery, global citizenship, and environmental stewardship. The Sarah Spurgeon Gallery's mission is specific to art and design. Both programs include the importance of diversity in their missions. However, Spurgeon Gallery presents viewers with opportunities to explore culturally diverse ideas in relation to or through the expression of art and design. The mission of the Sarah Spurgeon Gallery is to offer the campus of Central Washington University and the community at large the opportunity to view and experience art firsthand. The gallery's exhibitions and related outreach programs, such as workshops, artist lectures, and interpretive programs, are designed to support the department's educational objectives, as well as to enhance, engage, and challenge the viewer's knowledge and understanding of art and design. The gallery also presents artists and viewers alike with opportunities to explore culturally diverse ideas in an academic environment. Lastly, the Spurgeon Gallery's exhibits are temporary, meaning that every time that we host an exhibition, the artwork is borrowed, often from artists outside the university. We do not care for or display a permanent collection of artifacts, which is the traditional role of museums. Next on the docket. This one is from the Museum of Culture and Environment. They did also, in response, and I'll send this on here, provide an attendance list, because that was one of the questions. And so did answer the questions, but does have a spreadsheet with details about event attendance over the whole past quadrennium, which will get shared with the committee as it's an Excel sheet. Beyond that, in the questions, this one is the same question you just heard from the Sarah Spurgeon Art Gallery asking about displays hold a similar mission. So the Museum of Culture and Environment is the only museum on campus, meaning that we both provide care for objects, the 10,000 we mentioned in our presentation, as well as produce and promote exhibits and hold programs events. While the MCE does from time to time feature the work of artists, exhibits at the MCE also incorporate objects, images, and or personal narratives to tell stories that are centered on issues that are of importance to our audience. For example, we've hosted or produced exhibits about homelessness and drug addiction, the impact of climate change on the Arctic, baskets and textiles from the northern Philippines, human rights abuse in Chile during the presidency, domestic violence and sexual assault, and even how stars are formed. In upcoming years, we're planning exhibits on indigenous science, the revitalization of canoe technology among Native American communities, Black Lives Matter activism, and water resource management and agriculture on the Columbia Plateau. Our mission is focused on sharing stories about culture and the environment, which means that our exhibits do sometimes overlap with other areas of campus. But we feel that this overlap strengthens our campus community because it encourages collaborations across disciplines and student groups and organizations in ways that ultimately foster solidarity. Next question, what is the criteria that you all follow to decide if a student project or professional project should be displayed? The MCE attempts to plan for exhibits 18 to 24 months ahead of time. Though we do adopt a shorter timeline in order to respond to emerging concerns within the community, this is especially true for exhibits rooted in student projects, as we try to provide professional experiences for students hoping to go into a museum career. When deciding whether an exhibit is appropriate for the MCE's audience, we first consider whether the exhibit fits the mission. To review our mission, you can visit our website and they provide a link. Next, we consider if there are sufficient resources to support the research, writing, design, and fabrication of an exhibit. Resources can include, but are not limited to, knowledge and expertise, connections to other museums or individuals who can provide objects or art that will help us tell a story, funding for materials that go into exhibit fabrication, licensing. Finally, we take into account input from our annual survey of audience members. This survey provides insight into topics that are of concern to our audience. Last year, for example, respondents indicated interest in biology, environmental science, social justice, and local issues. If the above criteria are met, we bring an exhibit proposal, also called an exhibit brief, to the Museum Advisory Council. They will receive the proposal 2 weeks before the meeting so as to give them time to read thoroughly. During the MAC meeting, they discuss the proposal and vote on whether it should go forward. In order to reflect our audience and our role as a bridge between CWU and the larger community, the MAC is composed of students, faculty, staff, and community members. Next question, how do you bring these professionals to campus, and do they all do a speaking event as well? When the museum brings a professional to campus, they're featured as a speaker for a public event. Some speakers meet with students in a classroom context as well. We prioritize the use of funding from our College of Sciences 148 budgets for bringing in speakers. However, when speakers are invited as a collaboration with one or more student organizations or clubs, or when they directly intersect with classroom objectives, we may also draw from the MCE's allocated service activities fee account to cover travel arrangements. Do you keep attendance of event participation? If so, can you share those figures? Yes, we've attached a spreadsheet outlined in the public events, as I mentioned. The museum has hosted to date this quadrennium, including the promotional description and attendance at each. It's important to note that while S&A funds are not directly used for every event, S&A operational support in the form of staffing was essential to our continued expansion of the program. And then give some top line figures again that you all will receive. Next on the docket, we have here from Office of International Student Programs, questions they received. What are other sources of funding on campus does the OISP receive to cover costs outside of student payroll? Response, we receive state fund allocation as well as collect department fees. We collect department fees on top of our state allocation because a couple key positions are not covered by our state allocation. Next question, are there other possible sources of funding, i.e. grants, donations, etc.? Their response, there are, and they have been actively pursued for several years. Our donation efforts are currently focused on providing critical funding, help to international students here while COVID lockdowns are happening, and less about programming. Next question, it's my understanding that the international office charges a fee for each international student as well as small fees for certain events. How much of the budget does this account for? As this is the practice with many international offices around the country, OISP does charge an international student fee each quarter. That fee goes to support positions within the office that are not state funded. The positions that are supported by this fee are directly related to student support, insurance processing, and advising. We do charge students small fees for certain events, mostly out of town trips, as we do not have enough funding to cover the full trip, only subsidize the event or trip. This also helps ensure that students who sign up for trips are more invested in going because they've invested a small amount of money. The next one we have here was for the Money Savvy Wildcats. Let me pull that up. And so they provided a written response. Thank you for your time last week of follow-up questions related to our efforts to establish the Money Savvy Wildcat program at CWU. Question 1, as we know, new S&A departments have a slow rollout, difficulties hiring FTEs and student employees, et cetera. Given that, how will you ensure all of your allocated amount will be spent right away and spent ethically? To effectively launch and grow the outreach capacity for Money Savvy Wildcats, we'll begin recruiting for the program manager position in late winter quarter, continuing into spring quarter 2021. Beginning fall 2021, a portion of S&A funds will support 40% FTE for the program manager in their role with MSW. The remaining 60% FTE of the individual salary will be associated with delivery of finance and financial planning for credit courses for the Department of Finance and Supply Chain Management. To support pre-launch efforts, Finance and Supply Chain Management will use approximately $6,000 in unrestricted development funds designated to support the financial planning program, to hire the program manager part-time. The program manager's responsibilities during this period will focus on organization development, student recruiting, and development of materials to be used for peer counseling training. FSCM, Supply Chain Management, will begin promoting MSW coaching opportunities to students across CWU in spring quarter 2021. The goal is to secure prospective coaches to start early fall 2021. During the fall quarter, MSW services will be limited to group presentations and events. They will be delivered by the program manager, faculty or industry experts, and supported by a coaches and training team. During this time, MSW coaches in training will complete specific knowledge and skill challenges to build their ability to offer services to individuals and groups. Initial services will be delivered from students located at CWU's main Ellensburg campus. As training and management processes and procedures are developed, a plan will be established to identify and train prospective coaches attending CWU at various centers in fall 2022. To ensure financial transparency, all funds supporting the MSW program will be included in a quarterly report of accounts reviewed in the College of Business and available for reporting to the S&A organization. Question number 2, how will you engage non-College of Business students? The response, while program oversight of the Money Savvy Wildcat program will reside with FSCM department, MSW recruiting of prospective coaches and promotion of services will extend across CWU colleges and locations. Engaging individuals interested in joining MSW as a prospective coach will start with the university-wide call for students to join the coaching community. An interest to learn financial planning skills and a commitment to serve fellow students and the broader CWU community is a primary requirement to become an MSW coach in training. We wish to draw students pursuing a range of degrees, and participation is not contingent on degree program. More important, drawing prospective coaches that represent the diversity of individuals attending and working at CWU will contribute to the impact of MSW outreach. Ongoing outreach to faculty, students, and the community will be promoted in print, at information sessions, and online. In addition to promoting events and one-on-one coaching services, MSW will offer a means to support faculty when they are unable to attend a regularly scheduled class session. As an alternative to class cancellations, the MSW team may be called upon to deliver presentations at classroom locations in Ellensburg. Question number 3. On your projected budget, what are the other anticipated funds received each year outside of the S&A allocation? Reference in our response to question 1, the Department of Finance and Supply Chain Management will contribute to funding a portion of the MSW program via current and ongoing grant funding, as well as individual and organization contributions for financial planning program support secured via the CWU Development Office. To date, the department has been awarded 2 grants to support the financial planning program and outreach related to financial literacy from TD Ameritide. In 2018, a $25,000 grant supporting program development and scholarships. In 2020, an additional $15,000 grant included funds designated for outreach related to high school financial literacy, as well as funds to establish a web presence associated with financial planning and education. Additional grant funding opportunities are being pursued from various community-focused foundations, as well as financial service foundations. Portions of these proposals will address MSW outreach and support efforts. In 2015, CWU established the first and only financial planning degree program in Washington State. Program launch and subsequent growth has drawn support in the form of gifts from CWU alumni, as well as individuals and companies in the financial services industry. Gifts frequently are directed towards student scholarship, however, a significant portion are designated for use at the discretion of the program. MSW support will be a prime area designated, and the impact of the program will be shared with contributors. Finally, as part of its mission to improve the financial well-being of individuals across the state of Washington, the FSCM department collaborates with CWU's college in the high school to provide content, training, and oversight to deliver Finance 174, personal financial planning to high school juniors and seniors. While income is less substantial, it is included in the pool of funds available to support the Money Savvy Wildcat program. 2 more. Next one up on here is a longer one. It's from Olive Student Media. And so they provide answers to the question. They did also provide with that 4 of their slides related to some of the questions about the positions that you all, again, will send it separately. So you all will have that, but I will make my way through this. And so this one's kind of broken up because all of Student Media was sent questions together. And so there are some general questions, and then there are some specific to individual programs. So I'll do my best. General questions: what would be the impact if productions for Pulse and Observer were only digital and not printed for the CW community? And these are coming from the Student Media students themselves. Their response, we reach a much broader audience with print editions. One of the biggest impacts is the print editions of each publication, the Observer and Pulse, offer an additional point of entry. Pulse used to be digital only, and we found we generated very little interaction or discussion, not to mention award recognition or advertisements. Pulse is such a visual medium that print is absolutely essential for its continued viability. We cannot print fewer copies, and also fewer pages doesn't make a significant price difference either. The print issues for both publications generate the majority of our self-support revenue. Next question, is there work completed in the academic classroom that is being used to collect revenue for the department? The response is no. Next question, is the equipment purchased for student media used in the academic classroom? Their response, yes, as the majority of paid student leadership staff are considered part of the academic class as well. For example, the equipment CNW uses in the control room is accessed and utilized by students in the class, including leadership. It would not be viable to only allow paid student leadership staff access to the equipment, as funding only allows for 4 paid student staff in the case of CNW. It takes a team of multiple students to successfully produce and broadcast a newscast. That being said, there is equipment, such as the editors, computers, and printers, that are only accessible to paid student leadership staff. Additionally, for Pulse and Observer, students generally use their own camera equipment for photos and laptops for writing and most design work, especially during this time. Next question, what amount of the requested allocation is used for equipment replacement needs that would be deemed as a one-time expense? And this is broken down by each of the 4. Observer, $1,500 projected for equipment per year. Nearly all of that would be utilized for one-time expense, such as new computers for the newsroom. Pulse, $200 projected for equipment per year for the purchase of a printer and to maintain toner cartridges. CNW, $2,125 per year projected for a one-time purchase of a new set, totaling $8,500, plus $3,000 per year projected for additional equipment such as one-time purchases of camera kits, remote packs, mics, etc. And WCF, $10,000 per year for new equipment acquisitions, $5,500 for equipment replacement and repair, updates, upgrades, repairs, etc. Next question, what are the student positions that are tied to academic credit? Please list number of positions and titles. And that's where they provided the slides from their presentation. Typically, all but brand ambassadors, sales reps, and delivery drivers are tied to academic credit. However, some students take paid positions without signing up for the class, such as designers on the Observer staff. Next question, how much of the increase of funding is associated with the conference travel trips and the full-time position? And again, broken down by each. For travel, the Observer is $10,000 or 27% of their total goods and services. Pulse, and I skipped the page, Pulse is $6,000, 32% of their goods and services. CNW is $5,000 or 41% of their goods and services. And WCF is $4,000, which is 17% of their goods and services for travel. Full-time non-student positions says $14,184 per media outlet, and then gives a rough breakdown of how much that is for each of those units, which again, they had in their presentation. This includes payroll benefits, full-time 10-month cyclic classified position. Each media outlet funding includes 25% of the total full-time non-student position salary. Currently, the Observer is funding about 20% of the non-student position, and the College of Arts and Humanities funding the remaining 80% of the salary. Requesting to increase that to 25% per media outlet across the board for a total of 100% of non-student salary to be funded by S&A. Again, 100% of the non-student employees' duties are directly in support of student media and the CWU students. Next question, for advertising rates or project costs, do student clubs or students receive a discounted price? Response, not at this time. Advertising rates were set prior to the current business manager taking the position. Advertising rates have not changed at all during the 4-year funding cycle and needed to be maintained to meet or exceed advertising revenue as projected in the previous funding cycle's request. However, we will be implementing a discount for CW advertisers in the next quadrennium. Next question, can you describe how the departments calculate the course load when it comes to student hours and what they get paid? How much are the students working without getting paid, and how many hours do they get paid per week or quarter? Their response, students must contribute above and beyond what is required for the class. Classroom hours do not count as those apply to class credit. Credit hours are calculated according to university policy, 3 hours of homework for every class credit. That means 9 hours of coursework is expected prior to students being able to report hours. Historical data and industry standards help determine the set number of hours students are allotted for this particular position. Hours are adjusted as needed quarter by quarter, but must demonstrate that the increase or decrease in paid hours is justified and exceeded that of which is required by credit hours. All students receive minimum wage. Hours per week a student is dependent upon their position. Each position is different in the allotment of paid hours. For example, the editor-in-chief for the Observer can report up to 15 hours per week for pay, while the senior reporter can report up to 3 hours per week for pay. We pay students for the work they do above and beyond their credit course hours. Next question, what would be the impact if each department received a 15% reduction in S&A allocation? 15% reduction in S&A current allocations result in us first cutting any office supplies and promotional material expenses to the absolute bare minimum, which in all actuality is where we operate at currently. The reality of a 15% decrease would ultimately mean student positions would be at risk for all media outlets. This would translate to a decrease in the quality of student media that has become known for. Printing fewer copies and reducing costs that way is not viable, as we are at the minimum, and decreasing page count does not significantly impact the expenses for printing. We'd hope to maintain things such as award entry fees, web hosting expenses, and professional memberships as they add to the experience and quality of product each media outlet produces. The next question is specifically for C&W. I see there's a sports director and sector of C&W. Can you tell me how this is different than other sports-based newscasts that are also base funded by S&A? The response, the difference is C&W does not just do highlights. C&W provides game previews, athlete and coach profiles, stories about what athletes have to contend with off the field and court. To provide a few examples, C&W has done stories about student, hall, balance, sports, academics. Recently, C&W did a story about the city of Ellensburg issuing a Black History Month proclamation that was inspired by a meeting between the city and Black athletes. C&W stories aren't always on the court or field. With C&W, sports coverage is all-encompassing and includes coverage about club and intramural sports, outdoor recreation, the rec center, plus so much more. To assume that C&W covers the same as a radio broadcast is ill-advised. Additionally, C&W provides a different medium, as in broadcast and video, whereas the other sports sections mentioned and funded by S&A don't always provide that and are transmitted over the radio airwaves. Also, to indicate that one area on campus can't cover something another area on campus covers simply because of similar funding doesn't give equitable opportunity to the student experience. Differing student voices and perspectives offered through different approaches of sports coverage is something to be valued. For example, during football games, the radio station will provide a play-by-play call of the game. C&W, on the other hand, broadcasts live video updates from the sidelines. The video C&W post gives viewers a visual sideline seat to the game through analysis and live video interviews. These different approaches appeal to different audiences. Sure, both media outlets cover the same game, but the dissemination of different information through different media reaches different audiences. Again, both are valuable in their own way. Next, again, specific for C&W, how will C&W spend their projected $1,200 rollover? C&W will not have a rollover, as any funds left at the end of the quadrennium will be wiped unless it's in the form of self-support revenue. In that case, C&W does not have any remaining self-support funds. Any projected fund balance would be reevaluated and distributed for spring quarter student employment. Next question, C&W mentioned they traveled to CW sport events. Have they tried to reduce travel costs by partnering with Wildcat Sports Radio Network when they travel to the same events? Response, within the last 4 years, there have only been 1 or 2 instances where students traveled to sporting events. In those instances, some of the travel costs were incurred by the students. Our request is to increase that opportunity for student travel to sporting events through the funding of a travel budget. In that case, yes, collaboration and shared travel expenses with other departments is a possibility. Next questions are specific to Pulse. Are all of your sales and service revenues coming from advertising? Yes. Over the last quadrennium, over half or more than that revenue has rolled over year to year. How is this money spent before the end of the quadrennium? Their response, Pulse will achieve a zero balance budget by the end of the quadrennium through increasing student employment opportunities and accounting for the increase in printing costs. Next question, how much self-support revenues have rolled back into the department? Pulse will not have any revenue rollover, as any revenue that has been earned during this quadrennium has been absorbed and expended on operating expenses. How much revenue does Pulse currently have? $90. Does this roll over into Pulse specifically or into CAW Pulse? Any self-support funds stay within the specific media outlet they were earned for. There is zero crossover between student media budgets, S&A allocated or generated otherwise, and the College of Arts and Humanities or the communication department. Additionally, there is a zero crossover between the media outlets if a customer is invoiced for an advertising package that includes both Pulse and the Observer. The invoice is split per the individual media outlet advertising rates, and generated revenue is applied accordingly to each outlet. Next questions are for Observer. Can you describe the value in printing the newspaper in further detail? If there's value in printing, why only print the minimum amount of a commercial printer will agree to? Response, trends nationwide among newspapers is to continue with print edition, sometimes limited, like the Daily Record is printing 5 days a week now rather than 7. We have evidence that we reach a much broader audience with print editions than digital. Our once weekly edition offers an additional point of entry of particular interest to faculty, staff, and the local community, but also to students. When school is fully in session, we have street teams of students handing out copies to people on campus. Our graphic design staff gains invaluable experience on the print edition. They would essentially be out of work if we were digital only, providing one less practical experience for students. We only print the minimum because while we still have readership and an audience for a print edition, that audience has decreased to the point of only needing to print the minimum quantity. We're being resourceful and making sure we are not producing unnecessary waste just because. Our current audience supports the current amount we print. In a normal year, fiscal year 19, for example, this isn't a new question, I apologize. In a normal year, Observer earns close to $40K in sales and service revenue. Why does your request for the next quadrennium project only $25K in self-support funds for the next 4 years? Their response, advertising revenue continues to decrease industry-wide. With a pandemic that revenue has taken an even harder hit. Just like businesses can't be expected to recoup immediately following a pandemic, advertising will also take time to fully recoup. This is our best case scenario projection of what we could expect annually given those factors. While we do offer digital and online advertising opportunities, a significant amount of volume is needed to meet even one buy of a print ad. So even while we try to shift some of that advertising revenue to digital options, the volume will be less than what can be accounted for in print revenue. Additionally, as student media plans to implement discounts, other than the currently offered frequency discounts to CWU units such as S&A funded areas, student clubs or academic departments, we anticipate a slight hit to revenue. However, we see this undertaking as a good faith endeavor and anticipate CWU units will continue to see student media as a worthy source of advertising even more so. Next question, what is the Observer's current balance of sales revenue? $2,634. Next question, what are the Observer's operation costs specifically? Response, currently it's approximately $95,757 for goods and services plus $54,197 for wages and benefits. Next questions for Wildcat Films specifically. Why such a large investment into equipment on the last year of the quadrennium? Their response, it was not planned for the last year of the quadrennium. As mentioned during the Q&A portion of our presentation, we had plans to make a couple large purchases last year. One was pushed through before the spending freeze hit. The approvals for the others got tied up in the spending freeze and approval process. Therefore, we have a large sum of funds and list of equipment we are working to get approval for. Next question, how is the self-support revenue in Wildcat Films earned? Response, clients pay for student-produced lead video productions. Videos are often of the information and promotional sort. Next question, has a Wildcat Films department tried to partner with other departments on campus to reduce the cost of equipment replacement? Response, sharing equipment with other departments is not feasible for a number of reasons. Wildcat Film students need access to and are expected to use more advanced equipment than what is needed by other departments. Kind of basic equipment used to cover meetings or public events or the specialized kind of equipment used for shooting sports events does not meet our needs, and WCF's equipment would in general not meet the needs of other departments. If we did share equipment, we would have no way to assure that anyone who uses it outside of WCF is sufficiently trained. Right now, WCF equipment is only available for those students who have reached a certain level of skill in our production course series. If we acquire new equipment, we learn to use it as part of Wildcat Films. We don't have the faculty release time to train anyone other than our own students on the type of equipment we use, nor to troubleshoot it once it has been checked out. Proper training would be crucial, in part to prevent damage to the equipment. The film program has an equipment manager, a faculty member, who oversees film and WCF equipment needs and supervises student employees, who handles check-in and check-out, scheduling, sending equipment for repairs, etc. The release time for this faculty member is frankly insufficient for the handling just for our program's needs, so it would not be feasible to add other departments to this responsibility. If our student employee was required to handle equipment for other departments, those departments would need to pay a portion of their wages. It would be difficult to determine how to calculate this. Since we're not allowed to have any kind of insurance, WCF students are financially responsible for lost or damaged equipment. It's crucial to have an accurate check-in and check-out system in order to apply this rule when necessary. This would need to be applied to every individual who uses the equipment. Additionally, scheduling desirable equipment, especially if we only have a limited number, among multiple departments would require someone to decide whose projects have priorities over others. This task is already complex just within our program. WCF has an equipment plan that stretches several years into the future, as various pieces of equipment have different projected lifespans. Adding other departments to this with no way of knowing how much or how little they will use the equipment makes budgeting and planning incredibly difficult. It would also need to be determined whether access varies based on which departments purchase the equipment, assuming all parties are making purchases. All the logistics of scheduling, storing, maintaining, and tracking equipment and users requires oversight, and we do not have the manpower to expand that beyond our program. And finally, what would the impact be if Wildcat Films stopped charging for services for S&A funded areas? The response: charges to S&A based funded areas account for approximately $4,000 in revenue for Wildcat Films throughout the current quadrennium. That accounts for 35% of the total self-support funds for Wildcat Films receives. These numbers are skewed in the sense that about $1,500 in revenue will not be collected due to the pandemic, and Wildcat Film services not being needed due to the virtual nature of things as of current. And finally, the last one, I'm making sure I'm saying, yep, the last one that we have on here was the one from last week to the College of Business Clubs and Events. And so there's a preface response beforehand. Before I start to answer these questions, there's one item I must clarify to this committee. We are requesting the support from S&A fee because Hopin is a web conference platform not meant for instructional use, but meant for student services and activities such as career fairs, professional development conferences, student club events, guest speaker series, virtual boot camps, and site visits, etc. We need funding support if we are to serve the needs of the 1,600 plus College of Business majors and almost 700 College of Business minors. 1, the primary service and activity beneficiaries are the students in the College of Business. 2, we mentioned other departments during the presentation because we partner with these departments, such as career services, in hosting business and accounting career events. 3, the primary purpose of this fund, if granted, is to serve the needs of student engagement activities in the College of Business. ATAC was mentioned during the meeting, and the Instructional Technology Fund are not applicable to student activities. 4, Hopin can host events that can be designed well ahead of time, events that can run concurrent sessions seamlessly, events that can easily provide student participation data, and events that can allow participants the autonomy to pick and choose sessions and how they want to interact with each other. 5, perhaps more importantly, this fund, if granted, can finally allow us to engage the CW students who are at the CW centers, instructional sites, and online. 6, finally, I'd like to ask the committee to be the campus leaders that will think forward for our students. The decisions that this committee makes signal the strategic priorities in student services and activities. Pandemic or not, it's important to find a way so that our students across locations and online will engage in extracurricular activities that enrich the college experience. In a post-COVID world, is the traditional face-to-face events the only way to provide these services and activities for our students, or should there be another way to complement the face-to-face event modality? Now the questions. If a bunch of other departments want to benefit from this, why is there no investment or pitch in from these other departments? Response: the primary service and activity beneficiaries are the students in the College of Business. We mentioned other departments during the presentation because we partner with these departments, such as career services, and hosting business and accounting career events. We apologize if we created confusion as to whom the funding was requested for. Departments that are interested only became interested after they observed what Hopin can do during our trial period. As our interest and commitment are uncertain, we cannot wait for another few years for student service activities that we need to fund now. Next question: why not propose the software license expense to the BFA side of the CWU? Use the same budgets that pay for CW Zoom license. Response: the primary purpose of this fund, if granted, is to serve the needs of student engagement activities in the College of Business. Zoom was first acquired for instructional purpose. Hopin is a web conference platform and not a downloadable software. The same budget may not apply to Hopin. If it does, please let us know. Next question: have you received BTAC approval for the Hopin software? Their response: Hopin may not be a software as Zoom is considered by CWU. If it is, please let us know. We had contacted BTAC but did not receive clear answer to the question of whether Hopin is considered a software at CWU and whether a BTAC approval is required. In either case, please clarify what funding proposal would require the BTAC approval. This additional approval step is not part of the funding proposal submission process. An earlier conversation with Lacey and Tina with BTAC suggests that this proposal is separate from BTAC approval, that depending various factors, a BTAC approval may not be required. We're happy to take additional steps if these steps can be shared with us. This is not a response, but that was followed up on by Lacey and me in email, and did request that they go ahead and submit a case study to BTAC. Next question: there was a question following your presentation regarding funding this request via the student tech fee. I'd like to ask a slight clarification on your response. Did you request from the student tech fee and were directed to S&A, or were given advice not to request from the tech fee but to come to S&A instead? Their response: the question was raised by an S&A committee member. If I remember it right, the question was why we did not request from ATAC instructional technology funds. Our understanding was that instructional technology are meant to meet instructional needs and demands. Since Hopin is not meant for instructional use, but meant for student service activities, it would not fit the funding target that ATAC would consider. The question meant student tech fee, which according to the STFC supports service for general student use that includes but need not be limited to access to the internet and World Wide Web, email, computer and multimodal workstations and laboratories, computer software, and dial-up telephone services. Hopin would not fit in these funded categories. And that is all of the communications received. I appreciate you all hanging in there, and I'm going to drink some water.
All right, thank you, Joey. And on to that, let's go to public comment. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, let's get on to the presentations. The first one today is the community garden at the Wildcat Neighborhood Farm with Kate Dottie.
Hello. I am going to potentially share my screen.
Is it letting you do it now, Kate? I had to set it up.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. So as said, I am Kate Dowdy. I'm the manager at the Wildcat Neighborhood Farm. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And I also work with auxiliary enterprises on sustainability projects. But newly, I also manage the community garden. So for anyone that doesn't know, the community garden is a space that is open to students, faculty, staff, and Ellensburg residents to practice resilience by growing food for themselves and their communities. We have 48 plots for individuals or groups to adopt, and we also collaborate with campus and community organizations on smaller scale food and garden related programs. Previously, the garden has received funding from S&A for the fiscal year 18 to 21 cycle. Prior to that, there was some funding from the previous garden director's department. It was originally started as part of a class. And we are currently requesting $12,000, $12,270. The majority of which would go to student employment and the rest to goods and services. I included a table that you can see that is a general breakdown of what I anticipate those goods and services funds being used for. The garden is currently free for individuals or groups to use. We don't have a fee associated with having a plot. We just ask for a volunteer hour commitment to maintain the health of the space. So we like to provide seeds and transplants for gardeners if they would like to use them. They are also welcome to purchase their own, but they are not required to do so. And tools always break. And part of the mission of the garden is to also maintain the health of the space that we're in. And so we would like to begin planting perennial trees and shrubs that will provide habitat for wildlife on site. This past year, over half of our gardeners were undergraduate or graduate students, 17 out of 31. As we have increased the number of plots that are available, and we're also being more intentional in our outreach, we're hoping to increase the number of students or student organizations that have plots. And I'm hoping for around 60% for this next year, but it's hard to anticipate what that will look like with COVID. So we provide space for students to grow. We are also a point where students can access food. We have spaces that are planted specifically for anybody to come and harvest from, whether they have a plot at the garden or not. And we also provide a living laboratory for students if they would like to conduct research. Many students conduct research as part within the farm, but there are more possibilities in the context of the community garden that I think students could utilize. Moving forward, within our hope of expanding our programs specifically for students, we're in the process of developing a pilot program that would be connecting students who maybe don't have much gardening experience and want to learn more or want to have support as they start with experienced gardeners in the community. We are, again, in the process of developing that, but I think that would be a wonderful way for students to get more involved support than the farm staff can provide. We are also looking into doing kind of garden 101 workshops where we help people plan their gardens, and even if they aren't gardening with us, by doing this virtually, we are able to reach more people. And if they are wanting support in planning their garden at home, we would be able to provide that. And then thinking into post-COVID times, hoping that we get there soon, we are wanting to expand the in-person community events that we are providing. We have partnered with the ECLC for a few years on bringing their students out to get pumpkins, but we have also been in conversation about doing education with them on growing food. And we also would like to expand our partnerships with PUSH, the food pantries on campus, Apoyo, and Fish in the community. And I don't think I mentioned before that we have been working with Fish and Apoyo more on intentionally planting crops that we would take directly to them. The motivation for that is that we know that we have students that utilize the services that those organizations provide. And so by bringing food directly to those organizations, we know that we're also supporting our students. And that felt really fast. So if anyone has any questions, please, I will answer them because I know maybe I forgot something in there. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen as well. If I can. Yes, okay. Great.
Greg, I see your hand up.
Hi. Where is the garden? Is this where the greenhouses are now and all that new location?
What a wonderful question. That would have been really important for me to include in my presentation. Yes, the garden is where the new greenhouses are. It's on the block of Alder and 14th Street, or where Dean Nicholson Boulevard connect. And the garden is in, I can actually share another image. The garden is in the northeast corner of the farm where all the raised beds are. So I can actually show, this is not to scale, I will also say. These are not very accurate sizes, but this is the general layout. So we have the larger plots for the food pantries and for the self-harvest sections. And then we have the smaller squares that are individual plots that people can adopt. And we're thinking of ways where if someone's not wanting to commit to the full 8 foot by 4 foot plot, that they can maybe utilize some of the smaller planters that we have scattered around. So thank you for that question. Very good question.
Where's the greenhouses in relation to that? Just
south of that.
Just south of that, yeah, right, okay. And so you mentioned a part of that garden that anybody can come and just take food, but I walk by there, I go through there because I love it. I mean, it's a great space, but I've never known that I could get involved. I'm faculty.
Yeah.
There was some, I mean, I was like, I don't want to steal anybody's tomatoes, so I don't, but man, they look good.
Yes.
So like, how do we communicate this to everybody?
That's a great question. We're part of what the farm is doing, but also as within the community garden as well, is improving the signage that we have out there so that people know what is the farm that's intended for dining services and what is the community garden where there's areas that people can harvest from. So that's a really great point, but that's something that we're working on, because that is feedback that we've gotten a lot, is people not knowing where they're allowed to pick and where they're not. And yes, it's kind of confusing, but work in progress. Thank you for asking. And then it looks like Brandon maybe and Bjorn have questions.
Yeah, Brandon, then Bjorn.
Wicked. Thank you for the presentation. My one question is, do you have like any data or records of how much you all like donate to other works that battle food insecurity within CWU eBurg, whether that's like maybe poundage or like a dollar amount if it's valued? Like, do you have those records?
Yes, so not from only the community garden. The farm as a whole donated about 600 pounds each to Fish and Apoyo this past summer, and another 600 to people that came and harvested directly from our field. And I know that some of our gardeners who had plants that were producing more than they themselves could eat were also taking their produce to the food banks. And so one thing that is going to be really nice about having a student employee is that we're going to be able to provide the communication and the support to people to track what they take to the community organizations, so that we do know exactly what the impact that we're having on the community is. And then also so that if they wanted to measure the like pounds of food that they grow themselves that they take home, so that we also know, oh, we grew this number of pounds of produce that individuals were taking home to their communities and to their families and homes. Yes. I think that answered all of your questions.
And Bjorn, you had a question too?
Yeah, I'm really sorry if I missed this, but does the farm do any partnerships currently with any academic departments?
Yeah, so the farm and the garden the garden is part of the farm, but we also are kind of separate in our intent. So I work with students in environmental studies pretty frequently, and students who maybe aren't environmental studies majors but are doing the sustainability certificate. So we have worked with students who are doing research on like soil carbon respiration, which is very cool, and I can't really talk about in great detail because I'm not a soil scientist. And we have students that are working on collecting data for the upcoming composting projects that we'd like to do. And so I think with the community garden, that gives us opportunities to also work with students in nutrition or other departments that aren't necessarily as interested in the more technical side that might be there with the farm, but more on like the community impact that gardens like ours can have. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any more questions? Terry, I see your hand up.
Yeah, if nobody else is going to ask, I guess I will ask. Thank you very much, Kate. Is there, when I was looking at your information that you provided, I see that you plan to spend most of this on employees, you know, post when we're out of the COVID thing. Clearly that's a problem right now. Do you have any other resources for funding? Because it looks like to me that you're asking for $12,000 a year, so that will cover your employees and your goods and services, but there's some other things that aren't being covered. So are there other funding sources that you have for this?
So, well, maybe if you can provide examples of what else. So that's everything that the gardens that are expenses of the garden. So the water, well, maybe you can clarify what you mean by like any other things.
Well, when I was looking at the data, I was a little that was provided in the PDF file that we got. I was a little confused because it looked like you were going to spend $20,000 a year, but then when I looked at the allocation you're asking for from S&A, it only had 12,000 on there.
Which one are you which?
I'm sorry, I don't. Maybe Lacey can jump in here and clear this up for me.
So I'm gonna try, Terry. So are you asking like the difference between their current funding or what Kate is requesting? So before you answer that, I think what I'm trying to say is that she's asked, they are asking for 12,000, but they had excess funding from previous years. So they're trying to expend that funding, which I think Kate can kind of elaborate a little bit more on for this funding cycle.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I understand. I think, yeah. So we did have excess funding from the previous cycle, and that I plan to use some of that for some irrigation improvements and additions. But with what I'm requesting, we'll be able to cover our expenses for the upcoming cycle. And then we don't have other funding sources for this outside of S&A. In the past, it's been if you sign up for a plot, you buy your own seeds and starts. But I think especially in opening this up to students, being able to provide those for our participants is important. But other than that, we don't have any other funding sources.
Okay, that's where I was getting, Lacey, thank you. That's where I was confused about that, because it looked like you were spending like $20,000 a year, but you were only asking for 12, and I was concerned where the other money was going to come from. So thank you.
Great.
Lacey, did you have a question?
It's kind of a question, and hopefully Kate can kind of fill in some of the blanks, but I just wanted to point out that there was a change of management over the garden. And so the documents that the committee has there's really two different financials. And so it can be kind of confusing because we did a change. And so Kate, do you want to maybe describe how that kind of ended up happening from going from academic to the BFA? Because that's, I think, tying with that financial piece.
Yeah, so previously the garden was managed by Dr. Rebecca Pearson, and she is also who originally applied for S&A funds for that fiscal year 18 cycle. And so, but as life tends to happen, she wasn't able to put the time into the garden that really was needed to utilize those funds to the extent that they were there. And so that's how we ended up having so much extra. And so Becky and I talked about the possibility of making the community garden part of the farm so that I could provide that that management and be a consistent presence and tie it into the programs that the farm is doing to bring the garden into the sort of holistic plan that I have for the farm itself, to make the management of that a little bit smoother. And so this is this new request is sort of what would be needed to maintain the garden as part of the farm. And when the garden used to be where the current North Campus Recreation Complex is, and when they were needing a new home was when the farm was beginning, and we collectively asked for the space, and it just started to make sense that it becomes more a part of the farm. Hopefully that helps clear some things up.
And I believe we have time for about one more question. All right, one more question, if anyone has questions. Greg, I see your hand up.
Oh, yay. Hi. So I just, Kate, I think you had this in your first slide, but what is your position at Central, and what department are you in? And is that, I guess that covers your salary because it's not part of this, or how does that all tie together?
Yeah, so I am housed in Auxiliary Enterprises as the farm and sustainability manager. I manage the operations of the farm component of the Wildcat Farm. Yes, anyway, I'm like confusing myself as I'm going through this. And so that's where we provide produce to dining services. And within my role as well, I help dining with other sustainability projects or work with the Wildcat Shop, printing, the ECLC, any of our other areas that are under Auxiliary Enterprises on sustainability efforts. And so my salary is funded through the funding that the farm receives from dining, but that does not cover the garden expenses.
All right, and with that, I believe we're out of time for questions. If there are any more questions, you can email them to Joey, and then we'll give it to you, Kate, at a later date. Thank you for coming out. Really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
All right, our next presentation is Career Services West Side Counselor, and that is with Vicky Sanudo.
Great, thank you guys. I will attempt to share my screen. So, can everybody see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Are you good? Okay. So I just want to thank you for your time tonight, and you have so many amazing projects to consider, and it's probably a very difficult decision-making process. Merity is one of our Westside staff, and she's here this evening as well. Steve is not. The Westside staff serve Des Moines, Pierce, Linwood, Sammamish, JBLM, and they also serve online students. And I'll talk more about what those students look like later. They are physically housed at Linwood and Des Moines. This is just a bit of what I'm going to cover this evening. But I wanted to thank S&A for the previously funding these positions. It's created stability for the center students over the years, as they do not get a lot of services at the centers. Our staff often act as a point of contact for referrals to other resources that students need. And we've been funded since 2004. So why career services? Last time I did this 4 years ago, I asked the folks who here is interested in getting a job after they graduate, which I hope most people are. But this is from a Forbes article. You can see nationally what people are saying, that students and parents want career outcomes, that getting a good or better job is #1 reason why people come to school, and that having high quality career services really impacts the return on investment of a degree. And also that there's been a substantial demand for career services in the past couple of years. So, oops, why is it not going? Oh, great. I'm having trouble, sorry guys. There we go. So speaking of return on investment, I just took these figures off of Central's website, and I was shocked by the cost of attending university for 4 years. It comes to about $100,000, and that includes more things than tuition and fees. One of the top things that students request nationally, this is from higher education, is help with networking with peers, alumni, and employers, all of the things that our staff do. And then in May 2017, on one of the surveys that they gave to students, career services was voted as one of the top service that they wanted to see at the centers. So these are the services that we provide to students: career counseling. We also help students with looking for internships and the internship process. Career education, which in this case is workshops, classroom presentations, just helping students understand what the career process is. And employment support, so helping students find internships and jobs. Who do they serve at the centers? Thanks to Lauren Hibbs, who's here tonight. She gave me some information as well, but there are about 40% of the Central students are transfer students. And you can see from this list where the transfer students are coming from, and we serve all of those locations. And as I mentioned, we do serve online students as well. So these are some of the statistics from the university centers, not specific to the West Side, but I think you can get a pretty good idea of what we're talking about in terms of diversity. A lot of the students are first generation, they're veterans, international students, and they're definitely older, especially on the West Side. They're full-time students and low-income students. How do we decide what kind of programming we're going to do, and how do we evaluate that programming? So we definitely look at the attendance and participation in the services we offer, such as workshops and career fairs. We look at what majors are on the campus. We talk to people, especially employers, faculty, student services, etc., especially students. We also, every year at our retreat, look at what's been going on for the year and decide where we want to focus our programming. And we do surveys after or during orientation. The staff work closely with the clubs. And after every event and appointment, we send out surveys to people, so we get feedback. These are an example of some of the employers that we've worked with over the years. I tried to choose a variety of them and also to show some big names that we've worked with. There's a lot more than this. And we also ask employers what they're looking for from our students. And these are some of the things that they said. So interviewing skills, resume skills, knowledge of their job and industry, internships, and also some coaching on what to wear. And these are all things that we help our students do. This is an example of workshops that we've given in the last 4 years. So internships, job search, LinkedIn, informational interviewing, how to do a resume, cover letter, all that kind of stuff, OPT and CPT for international students. And there's many more, but I just wanted to give you sort of an idea of what they look like. This past year, due to the pandemic, we spent a lot of time doing videos. And Merity's done a great job with the ITEM students and the law and justice students to get employer panels together. We record them and then we post them on our YouTube channel, and they've been very well received. Steve has been helping us with our Discover Your Path videos, And those are interviews with alumni, some of our former peer advisors, and also employers that we've worked with to talk about how they got into their careers. So we've definitely invested a lot of time putting those together to help encourage students in their career paths. Some of the events that we've done, ACE is the accounting, any accounting students out there, accounting and fall accounting recruiting for accounting students. Meet the employer, so we actually host information sessions at the centers or virtually now, where students can meet employers. At Linwood, we've had a couple of etiquette dinners, very successful. And then, like I said, we're doing different kinds of workshops. We also have a lot of school districts that do information sessions at the centers, and because we have an education cohort there. So just a couple of quotes. One was from faculty at the last etiquette dinner. The evening was a success from beginning to end. And then this other quote is from the recent ITEM employer panel. Thanks again for hosting. This was an amazing event and very well attended. This just wanted to show you some visuals. This was an accounting preparation workshop at Linwood where they brought employers in to talk to the students about the recruiting cycle for accountants. This is a live resume event, again, bringing in employers to sit down with students and review their resumes. Classroom presentations. They do a lot of classroom presentations, and this is just an example of, well, I think it's almost all of the majors at the centers, except in individualized studies and psychology maybe, but those are the majors, and they have definitely had a lot of great partnerships with faculty to talk to students in their classes. They've also helped students attend and have gone on field trips with them, which is another thing Career Services does. So this is, I think, the Washington State Legislature that they went to one year, but these are some of the other field trips that students have attended, including Nike in Oregon. Outside the office, they participate in new student orientations, welcoming all the new students, graduation fairs, so helping to support the seniors who are graduating. Source on the west side, they've been involved in that. They participate in new faculty orientations. Merity, I know Merity has, and one of our former colleagues there has even driven a van over, or a bus, come with the bus to bring students to the Ellensburg career fairs. So that's kind of out of their way, but they work with employers to obtain jobs and internships. So they actually meet with employers. They belong to committees that support professionals like the Society for Human Resource Management. And then they also connect students to alumni for networking, for informational interviews, for internships and jobs. So a little bit of our statistics over the past 4 years. As you can see, they've connected with several thousand students in the last 4 years, either in person and or virtually. In 2018, we changed our data collection methods, so we didn't get great data that year. And then in 2020, in March, COVID hit and we moved completely online. So you can see that we're not even finished the year, and we're definitely getting a lot more contact with students in the virtual environment. So that's been really interesting for us.
And Vicki, just to let you know, we are at time for the presentation.
Okay.
We do have an option to extend the time, but someone would have to motion and then we'd have to vote for that.
Okay.
All right.
As a reminder, Christian, I think the committee previously, Josh had brought up several times to give you the blanket. If these come up, you have the ability, and I can't remember if it was 2 minutes or 5 minutes. I don't remember if someone else, and Aubrey's not here to recall the minutes for me.
I think it was,
almost done.
I think it was 2 minutes. Is that right if we go 2 minutes more?
Yep.
That's good for me too, because I'm almost done.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so you
Few
can
more
see
minutes
what
then.
students say. They got a job, action plan, job, valuable information, resumes. Here's our org chart. You can see where the centers are. We're asking for the same amount of money. We hope to hire 2 more peer advisors. And we've asked for state funding year after year and have been turned down. There are no additional funds, and we've had rollover in our budget every year. Just a little visual for one of our workshops, and I am done that one. So are there any questions? Yes, Messina?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for your presentation. Do you happen to have like the data on how many students you employ?
Usually we only have 2 peer advisors for the West Side centers, just because that's how we built that budget, to include, that's about the right amount of money for those positions. Other questions?
Terry, I see your hand up.
Great. Yep, thank you. Vicki, could you tell me what the ratio is of career services people at the West Side centers with these 2 positions as opposed to the Ellensburg campus?
So there's just 2 people on the West Side to cover those centers. And on the main campus, we have 4 similar positions. Does that make sense? There's 4 career counselors in Ellensburg and 2 on the West Side.
Who have similar, like looks like one's a 10-month position and one is a 12-month position, so they would have similar types of things in Ellensburg.
Yeah, the one we have in Ellensburg, we have 3 full-time and 1 11-month position. And just to let you know, the 10-month position on the West Side is 36 hours a week, not 40. Other questions?
I do have another question. It seems kind of odd to me that we are funding these positions out of, these students are paying tuition just like Ellensburg students are paying. We're funding these positions out of S&A. I'm sure this is going to be a continual question for all of these things, that why are we funding this out of S&A, why are we funding these positions out of S&A as opposed to funding them like we fund the Ellensburg positions?
Really good question. Like I said, I've asked for state funding every year and haven't received it.
If you don't mind, Vicki, I'll try and answer that. Which again is not to say, this is just from the historical context, is it really came up from a 2-fold standpoint of not being able to secure the state funding. And again, this is from years back, not being able to get additional funding and identifying that we had this need at the centers, and the S&A committee wanting to provide support to the center students who also pay the S&A fee. And so similarly to where until obviously this year with the shift in advising, we also S&A funded a West Side academic advisor for similar purposes, but more so with the career services because it does tie to activities and services outside of the classroom, and the students were really valuing that, especially at the centers.
Any other? Jessica? Jessica?
I think she gave a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay, it's
all right. Bjorn, I see your hand up, but Terry, did you have your hand up first or no?
That's okay. I was just going to ask, since these are West Side positions, are they working 9 to 5 or are they working in the evenings?
Yeah, they work in the evenings. Yeah.
You get double then for me because I know that's when West Side students are there. Okay, thank you.
That's right. Yeah.
And Bjorn has your hand up.
Yep. So if West Side Career Services was originally funded by S&A as an effort to advance equity on the West Side. Is there any chance that the university could be persuaded to fund West Side Career Services the same way they fund Ellensburg Career Services, you know, in the interest of fairness?
I'm all for fairness. So I don't have an answer to that question. Like I said, we have continually asked for that and haven't gotten it.
I've always been told that if the community doesn't fund, to start looking for a job. So I've never been told there's any other funding anywhere else. And when it's been borderline, it's been like, okay, we better start looking for a job then. So I never know. I just, you know, do my best from year to year to just serve students.
I see. That's not how it should be.
Not for the West Side students. Yeah, right.
Messina, I see your hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned that you have rollover every year. What do you guys do with that rollover?
We've just let it roll over. So that's why we've got quite a bit at the end of this 4-year cycle. I'm not, you know, I just don't see the need to spend money unnecessarily. So typically, like we probably would have used more funding if we had peer advisors in the last year, last 2 years. Those are the only 2 years we didn't have students doing this, doing the peer stuff. So, yeah.
Any more questions? All right, seeing none. If you can think of any more, just email Joey, they'll email Vicky. And then Vicky, I believe you're doing the next presentation as well for the peer advisors.
I am. You're gonna get tired of this. I'll try to make this one quicker. Okay, so I usually talk so fast, I can't believe it. So Kaylee's here. She's one of our peer advisors, and I invited her tonight. These are 3 of our previous peer advisors. And again, this is kind of how what I'm going to go over tonight. I thought I'd start with a definition. What is peer advising? An educational process in which students are intentionally connected with other students to support learning and success. There's 3 things that I think the peer advisors get out of our program. So the program is set up for the benefit of the peer advisors as well as for the rest of the students who are receiving their services. Obviously our peer advisors develop their own professional skills, including presenting, project management, role modeling, administrative tasks, and marketing. They're trained to review resumes and cover letters and have great knowledge about interviewing and job and internship search. They also help us, Career Services, evaluate our programs, which is one thing I really love. We have been funded since 2006, and we've had, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. I started the program in 2006 mostly because I wanted to have students get practical experience while they were in university that they could use in their careers. We also help the peer advisors apply for their permanent jobs when they graduate, as well as graduate school. The program has served about 60 participants, and that's including international students. We have 4 peers this year, and all the peers come from all sorts of majors. We've kept track of them over time, and many of them go on to master's and doctorate programs. For example, the guy you can see wearing the white t-shirt, that is Chris Lake, and he is Professor Chris Lake at the University of Alaska in Anchorage. How do we decide what programming to do and how to evaluate it? The same as the West Side in a way, but mostly it's student demand. So one of the highest in-demand things we have are the resume drop-in times that the peers staff usually. The peers have suggestions about programming. We do focus groups. We also do surveys after everything we do to get feedback. We collaborate with a lot of other places on campus. Normally we would have drop-in hours in the library. The students also participate in new student orientations, including tabling. They present to clubs. And then last year we started drop-ins in the Diversity Center for 2 hours a week, both virtually and in person. And they also help us with our career fairs and tabling in the CERC. This is an example of the workshops that we've done so far this year, some of them twice. And the number of students served, they've served over 1,000 students in the last 4 years. This year, the peers are helping, really they're our frontline workers. So they're answering our phone and email, they're posting on social media for us, as well as doing other projects. The first 3 years of this data is actually reflecting one-to-one appointments with students, whereas the 2020 to 2021 data reflects us going virtual and then working both in person, a little bit in fall quarter, and over email and phone. They help us, career services mandate is to help students find jobs and get into graduate school. So they obviously are helping us with that. And also, as I said, they help us to figure out what other kind of programming we can do with students in career services. Our org chart, you can see the peer program and the centers again. The current peers, Kaylee is at the top, and then Kenzie's to the right, Annahi is in the middle, and Jennifer to the left. Annahi got a full-time job in December, so she's no longer with us. And Kaylee has 2 appointments for grad school interviews next week. In their own words, so these are some former peers. This program shows the student body how to be confident in their skills, be prepared for interviews. A good amount of students come in worried about having no idea where to start. And then the peer advisors offer them someone who can be less intimidating than one of our staff. It also allows career services to reach more students by expanding our staffing. And they also give us a fresh perspective of, like I said, what kinds of programming should we do? You can see quite a few of our past peers in our Discover Your Path videos. Jessie Allen, who is one of our career counselors in the College of Education and Professional Studies, was a peer advisor, and she went on to get her master's degree and is now a career counselor. Kelsey, who's in the bottom left of this photo, works in our office as well, helping with the internship program. We're asking for the same budget that we've had in the past, just with cost of living increases. The amount of money we spend is almost all salary and benefits, and the number of peers we hire depends on how much money we have in the pot and if they're work study or not work study. So sometimes we do provide additional funding if they need it. We've never exceeded our budget, and any rollover goes to hiring more peers for the next year. So this is Brian and Lila. Brian went on to get to study neuropsychology, and he's now Dr. Taimi. He's a psychologist, and Lila is a mental health counselor. So I thought you might enjoy seeing where some of the peers end up. Do you have any questions?
I see Bjorn's hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the peer advisors are on a work study program. Could you describe how that kind of works?
The work study funding, you mean? So they're funded. So so I think we have to pay like 40% of their salary, and then work study pays about 60% of their salary. So that's why the number of peers can fluctuate, because if we're getting some help, then we can hire more students.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Terry?
Terry, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Are these students all in Ellensburg, or are any of them online or Westsiders?
I should have said that. Yeah, so mostly their main campus. Yeah, their main campus. And that's why the West Side budget has the other peers for the centers. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Sorry, seeing none. If you have any more, just email Joey and we'll get an answer later. Thank you, Vicki, for both of your presentations tonight. We appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for your time.
All right. The next presentation we have is the West Side Student Life, and that is with Michelle Cooch.
Hi, Christian. I was hoping that I could make a motion, or somebody could make a motion, that we would combine our West Side Student Life and our University Centers presentation into one and have it be a 20-minute presentation.
All right. Can I entertain a motion? Brandon, are you motioning?
Yeah, so moved. And then also 20 minutes for questioning as well.
All right. Any seconds?
Seconded.
Seconded by Bjorn. All right, motion passes. You guys now have 20 minutes to present whenever you're ready.
Awesome, thank you. So I'll send it over to Lauren and we'll get going.
All right, well, good evening. I think we're your last presentation tonight, and we promise to make it fun and entertaining. I'm gonna go ahead and share a screen here. Let me know if you all can see this. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. As you know, we are representing the 8 university centers and sites. The sites are really led by 3 main individuals. Dr. Adiz Kaikuku is our Dean of Extended and Global Education. My name is Lauren Hibbs. I am the Executive Director and also a very proud CW alum of our Ellensburg campus, and also Michelle Cook, who is our Associate Director of West Side Student Life. And then we also have 15 amazing student employees who really we have to recognize as the big leaders of the university centers on our West Side campuses. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to talk a little bit about the university centers because we represent that population, and it's a big part of who CWU is. For those of you who don't know, we have 8 different locations, 5 on the west side, 3 on the east side. Every single one of those is very, very different. We could go into details about the unique differences all day, but we're just going to kind of talk about them more in generalities unless you have specific questions, but we'll answer some of them. This right here is a picture of each of those 8 locations. 6 of those 8 locations are co-located on a community college. And 2 of those locations, one is located on a military base, and one is a standalone building at CW Sammamish that was an old church that we converted into a university site. Those community colleges have thousands of students that attend there each year. And the universities contribute from those community colleges about 2,100 students, either to Ellensburg, to the university centers, or online every year. So it's a big portion of our CW community are coming from these 6 co-located colleges. And so it's very important for us to have very strong, positive relationships with all of the administrators, all of the student leaders, and all of the students who are traveling between the campuses. A little bit about the student demographics at the university centers. This represents all of the centers, all 6 university centers, and then the 2 instructional sites. As you can see, we're incredibly diverse. Nearly 70% non-white demographics. We're largely a female population, about 63%. And most of our students are attending a program either hybrid, face-to-face, and sometimes online as well. And this is from fall 2020. This does vary between about 150 and 250 students each year, going up and down, just depending on some of the flow of the economy is usually what's determining that. In total, at all 8 university centers and sites, this fall we had 1,574 students. Over 500 of those students were first generation, 120 were active military, 121 were international students, and more than half were over the age of 25. Nearly 80% of our students are attending full-time, and over 400 filed a FAFSA or a WAFSA. We serve multiple programs and degree offerings. This right here is the list of the different degrees. There's really every university center has a different program mix. Some of our centers only provide one program. So CWU Moses Lake, it is primarily IDS. It just started an elementary education program this fall. Our Moses Lake campus has primary elementary education IDS. Yakima is also similar. So on our east side campuses, we really have about 1 to 2 programs. On the west side, we have our larger campuses. They vary anywhere between 5 and 8 different programs, and all university centers serve online students. So believe it or not, of our nearly 1,200 online students, 85% of them are within 30 minutes of one of these university centers. So we know that they're nearby and they are often accessing the services that are located within their community. This slide right here, I think we're probably going to come back to and ask some questions on. I know you'll probably be interested. This right here on the right side, this represents extended learning, the university centers. So the university centers are led by Adiz, who you saw that picture, myself, Michelle. We also have a position that serves Linwood, and then we have the 15 student employees. So out of the S&A fundings, we have these 2 full-time positions and then funding for 15 student employees. Outside of the university centers, S&A fees are also covering the 1.75 career counselors that you just heard the presentation on from Vicki, 1 advisor that's located at Des Moines that is really primarily only for College of Business, and then the rest of the funding is going back to Ellensburg. To put that into real numbers, that means that the university center students are paying the same S&A fee as our Ellensburg students. For that population that varies from year to year, that's about $888,000 to $1.06 million a year just for those university center students. For online students, it's the same. So that's an annual contribution of $1.76 million to $2.13 million every year. That's how much S&A fees are coming from the online and the university centers. The allocation just for this part right here is $257,000. That does not include the 2 career counselors, the advisor, or the funding going back to Ellensburg. So that's just for that 2 FTE and those 15 student employees. So again, the contribution from those students and the allocation back. Again, it doesn't include these 2 roles. So I think that we'll probably have some questions about this. The university centers are very much a part of giving access to time and place-bound students who would otherwise not be able to achieve a higher education. They've provided access to tens of thousands of students since their conception in the early 1970s, and they serve as a primary beacon for non-traditional students throughout the state, as well as adult learners. Our student life programs are essential in building the community, the equity and access that we hope to serve as an institution. This right here, these two slides kind of point out just some of our specific strategic plans as they relate to student life. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle now, who's going to talk a little bit about what we actually do at those centers. And before I turn it over to Michelle, I just want to point out that Michelle has been working single-handedly over the last year as we've had one of those two FTE vacant. And so Michelle has been working to serve the West Side students, but has also been very generous in making these events accessible to the entire CW community, including the East Side and Ellensburg campuses. So Michelle, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Lauren. All right, hi everyone again. My name is Michelle Cook, and I wanted to start off today with our mission statement. Our mission is to engage the West Side student body and develop a sense of campus community through diverse activities and events, student clubs, student leadership training and development, special graduation events, collaborating with community college partners, and supporting our non-traditional student populations. In addition, we also provide support for students with disabilities seeking accommodations. So in that spirit, with our mission being at the center of all of our programs and our development, we collaborate with our partner colleges and our students, with our student services and faculty. We have ongoing meetings, meet and greets with students, our student employees called the CAT team, Campus Activities Team, who are strong leaders, collaborate with our current students as well. And we just do a lot of peer-to-peer engagement, and we also solicit feedback always from our faculty and our staff. We could go to the next slide. Okay, so some of the accomplishments. I've been here a short while, 2.5 years, and in that time, just have been really focused on growing our programs for our students that are surrounded around their major and also their career life. So for our non-traditional students over here on the West Side, the purpose of our events has to meet where they're at, and that is a lot of them are raising families, are working full time. And so we have to coordinate our events to match the times that they are available and make it accessible, and also make it worthwhile because they are so busy. So I created our leadership conferences. We're going into our 3rd annual one this spring. I'm very proud of that. When we hit COVID, I was worried about what our attendance would be, and we actually exceeded the attendance from the previous year, even though it was online and on Zoom. And then we just completed our 2nd annual diversity conference. And both of these conferences, I've utilized faculty from our main campus and our West Side centers. I've utilized community members in our surrounding communities and made sure that we had a very diverse group of speakers and workshops so that students from all different majors would have an interest in it. I also made them certificates of completions, so that way they could utilize this on their resume as they go out into the workforce and show that they're building up their professional development. We also are very focused on our multicultural events, and every month we make sure that we have at least 1 or 2 events that students can come and learn about different cultures and kind of have some discussion and open and honest feedback with each other, and that peer-to-peer relationship and building. This March, I have now just created our Women's Empowerment Retreat for our students, and entitled Empowering You to Empower Others. And so this is also a very exciting retreat where students can come and network with one another, build community and a sense of belonging with each other. And because of COVID, we have opened it up to our community members. So our host college campuses have all been invited and have attended these conferences from Highline, Edmonds, and Pierce College as well. Okay, and so Student Life also oversees clubs. And some of our new clubs this year, well, last year was STEM, and Teachers of Color We have NALA, who just got recognized, and our International Student Club. And so we collaborate with our clubs all the time and make sure that we're providing services and opportunities for our students who might not be able to attend things. And one of those examples would be our psychology club. When I first started, they got part of their funding from a supplemental request through you all, and then they got the rest of their trip covered through my budget. And so students were able to go to their convention in California and be fully supported with that. And so I really look forward to that post-COVID, that we can start funding some of these trips again and supporting our clubs. We do a lot of faculty collaboration. In fact, over the winter, to keep students engaged with one another, we did a book club that we co-collaborated with one of our faculty members over here on the west side. So we had 30 students who signed up for that and continued to meet throughout winter break and stay connected in that way. Our international student programming, we work a lot with the International Student Department here at the West Side to help them with their events and also support them in what they're doing. And then finally, our community outreach. We are always collaborating with our host colleges. We are always doing events with them. We help put speakers together and make it even more accessible for our students to attend and have more of a wide variety of choices as well. And a question may come up, well, could they do some of these things in Ellensburg? Yes, they could. However, when you have time and place bound students who are more of the older working adults with families, to be able to network out into their own communities, whether it be in Linwood, whether it be in Des Moines, whether it be in Pierce, things that are in their own backyards, it's going to make it more accessible for them to really get their name out there. And again, just to network, which is a huge thing for our students. I hear that feedback all the time. I want to network, network, network. And that's what we do and provide. With our funding that we're asking, we are looking at opportunities at building stronger relationships with our host colleges. As you may know, we do have the position up at Linwood, but it has been vacant for over a year. And right before we were to hire someone, we went into COVID and the position was frozen. And that position really worked closely with Edmonds College. And so in trying to keep with that tradition and keep that relationship going, I've had to work extra hard to make sure that we are keeping those open lines of communications open. So we're asking in our supplemental request that those positions would also be at Pierce College and at our East Side centers, and also for our Sammamish, and so that we can keep connecting our students to the community, which they will most likely go out and work after college. We would like to also incorporate more programming opportunities, bringing more speakers and more events that will help to engage our students a little bit more. We also want to just create that sense of belonging for our online students. I know I was an online student at one point, and it can be a lonely place. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping those students engaged as well and feeling like they're part of Central Washington University and our campus life. And also we want to keep building up our clubs and support new activities. And that can only happen when we have more staffing available for those one-on-one interactions, because I know that we will be back in person very soon, and those high touch interactions are so important for our center students. They just need to have that connection. Okay, so our next slide. These are some of the events that I've pulled from in the past. We've done co-collaborative events for MLK Week with Highline. We've also collaborated with them with their LGBTQIA. With Edmonds College, we have also collaborated with their Leadership is You conference. And in fact, because I have done our LEAD conference last spring, virtual style, Edmonds is now asking for our professional advice on how to do their own conference coming up here soon. We also work with them to do the last event was our MLK with them as well. And so that was great. Then we also, which was really exciting in COVID land, is we had our Hispanic Heritage Month event, and it actually made headlines because we used our CWU culinary services to do a live cooking event. And so the attendance with that was awesome. And we posted the video online, and it had over 100 views of students watching it later who didn't attend in person. So we've moved some of our events to make it not only live, but also later on they can watch it on our social media and Instagram. About 2 years ago, we did a visit with our board of trustees. So we took a center student from each of the center locations and brought them over to Ellensburg. And they had a wonderful time visiting with the board members and just letting them know what their needs were and what they saw as successes. And just to have that open dialogue was just an awesome thing. And then for our Asian Pacific Islander month, we utilized our community resources to have people come in and teach our students about the cultural event, and we had music and live dance, and that was just great. So we do a lot of events. And then finally with our faculty, we've also done Hispanic Heritage Month. As you see in the one picture, we did a classroom event there. We've had alternative Thanksgiving. Oh, we try to work as much as we can with our center faculty to make sure that we're providing students with not only with what they want, but what they may need in order to succeed once they graduate from Central. So I try to make sure that academics play a huge role in the events that we do and make it meaningful. And then our next slide is we talk about evaluation. And so we do a lot of peer-to-peer evaluation from our events. We also do a survey after each of the major conferences, and I get almost 100% return on that. And so I can really gauge to see what students are looking for. And so what they're saying, and that's just really tiny print, so I have to go to my, is that, okay. Let's see. Oh, sorry about this. I'm going to go right here. Okay. What I found the most valuable aspect from the conference is finding my identity and how to break down barriers to be a better person, leader, and also a professional as well. I learned how I can use what I thought were my weaknesses to be my strongest assets. The most valuable aspect of this conference was becoming more aware of the topics that are culturally relevant to today's society. Likewise, from this conference, I learned more about how to become a better leader and advocate for myself and others. In connecting with people, I can relate my experiences to and apply their advice to my personal life and future. The LEAD conference material was useful for my program and for after graduation. And as you can see here, the theme is leadership. So I'm the largest employer of student workers here on the West Side, and we really strive to make sure that our students are, you're fine, Lauren. We make sure that our students are getting professional development opportunities. I've had some of my cats go to some of our community college events virtually this year to develop their skills. We've done a lot of online trainings as well. Each of my cats are very strong leaders. They lead out on our events, and they compile their little team together to make sure that an event is planned, implemented, and completed all the way to the end. So, you know, for me, it's all about challenge and support. And so I challenge my cats to go beyond what they think they can do. And I also support them in that endeavor to make sure that they succeed. Okay, and so these are the proposed positions that we are looking for beyond what is allocated to us. We are looking for one full-time position that would work with Yakima, Moses Lake, and Wenatchee. A 3/4 position for the Pierce JBLM campus, which I had brought to S&A pre-COVID. It was approved and then COVID hit, so that was all frozen. And then another full-time position to address just our online students. And so this is what the org chart would look like if those 3 positions were approved. And I think we hit it. Oh, we have 2 minutes left. Wow, look at that. That was that was pretty close. Any questions? Oh,
I can add one more thing, because I really, you know, it's fortunate that we were right after Vicki at Sanudo in regards to career services. What happened is in 2018, a survey was done of our university center students asking what are the most important services for you to be successful? And they really identified 4 key elements: advising, financial aid, career services, and tutoring services. That is why historically we've funded those S&A positions, those career services positions, is in response to what do university centers students absolutely need to be successful that they're not accessing at a campus that may be 90 minutes to 4 hours away. And so that's part of the reason that we do support that request. Those are very important positions to the university centers. We'd like them to function a little bit differently, but they are essential in making sure that our students are connected to their workforce needs. And that's it. Can we answer any questions? Brandon, I see you have a question.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember, but was the department fully staffed? I guess like all the university, I guess coordinators, was it fully staffed this year?
No, we were down 2 regional directors at Sammamish and Linwood. And so myself and another director from Yakima, I took Sammamish this year and she took Linwood this year. Fortunately, about 2 weeks ago, we announced that we combined those 2 FTEs and we put them into one. It's a really big job for one person, but that one person's going to cover Sammamish and Linwood.
Okay, so we're currently in the job search then, or I guess recruiting phase for that.
We hired someone named Mark DiValigo. I'm saying that wrong. He was actually a director at Edmonds College, so he's very familiar with our university center at CWU Linwood, and as well as Sammamish. So again, we moved from 2 FTE regional directors to 1. Those are not S&A funded positions. Those are university funded positions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I believe Bjorn was up first and then Terry.
So earlier in the presentation, I think you displayed a graph of students by modality, and I was wondering if you had figures for the 2019-20 school year, just because I'm assuming online was a little higher this time around.
Yes, it was. And I'll tell you, it's really, that's a difficult, we can get that information for you. It's difficult, and the reason why is programs and courses are 2 different indicators. So a program like College of Business, you want to be an accounting major, well, that may be an on-ground program, but of course that quarter may be online. And so those numbers are really difficult to construe, and we haven't had strong definitions of modality. So we generally just talk about our programs as they're typically hybrid. And the reason we say that is as a program, as a whole program, you may be taking some that are face-to-face and online, or in some courses may be fully online. Over the past year, all of them have been online, which was because our host colleges decided that they weren't prepared to face this pandemic. And so our host colleges said we are going to be all virtual this year. And as really guests on their campus, we followed their lead. Even if so, those demographics that you saw, those are representing what is a typical university center experience. They're mostly hybrid programs.
Okay, thank you.
And if you think about the demographic, that makes sense, because if you're a working adult, you probably can't go to class at 10 and then 2 and then change it on Monday or Wednesday. You really need something that's really predictable where you can build your, your career and take care of your family. And it's something that's accessible so that you can work 8 to 5 or, 9 to 3, depending on whatever it is.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. Terry? Terry, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, no, I did. Sorry, I'm just slow at unmuting myself, and then lowering my hand. All right. So I have a couple questions. So first of all, I noticed in, and I'm sorry, I can't remember if it's the West Side budget or the center, or the Student Life or the center one, that I saw that there's a big jump in spending on goods. And then also a big jump in spending on software and then program. Could you, I don't know whose this is. Could somebody tell me why there was such a big jump in those areas?
I saw Lacey get excited, but I suspect it might be because those positions were vacant for so long. Those positions were vacant for about 18 months, so there was no spending prior to Michelle coming in for quite some time. But Lacey, you might have more context.
And there I go, stumbling over the mute button. So I think, and Terry, I'm still trying to pull it up. It's not pulling up quickly for me, but there is and I'm trying to remember, I think it was in fiscal 18 or 19, but there's a large furniture purchase. And what, to kind of give some historical context, that individual had come to the committee and to request some of the salary savings that Lauren mentioned to dedicate to the different type of centers for the furniture. Lauren, do you want to kind of expand on what that furniture piece is?
I can share what the furniture was. So we purchased new furniture for our Linwood campus. So we, how the university centers work is that we have shared classroom space, and then we have kind of central designated student hangout space. And the furniture we had in that space was really getting old and yucky at all 3 West Side locations. So we did a major facelift at Linwood, at Sammamish, and at Des Moines. They all 3 got new furniture that was about 10 years old. And it really, as we're building culture and we're trying to have people have an opportunity to hang out, we really wanted to make those spaces warm and inviting. And so they each got a variety of couches and chairs and tables, and also outlets where they could plug in their iPads and their phones. We got some desks so that it was just a little bit more student friendly for them. That's what that was. It was just furniture.
Okay, but there also was a big jump. It looked like somebody spent a whole bunch of money on software.
I don't know what that is. That wasn't us. So Lacey, do you know?
So the software and the equipment line, that's kind of where the furniture line goes in. So as far as I know, it wasn't software. It was just that big purchase. And I believe it kind of crossed over a couple of fiscal years, if I remember correctly, because it was right towards the end of or it was right in June, July time.
Okay. All right. If I understand correctly, you want an additional position for online students.
Yes.
A 3/4 position for Pearson JBLM, and I think there was one more.
The east side. So we have 3 campuses on the east side. We have Yakima, Moses Lake, and Wenatchee. There's about 200 students that are generally on ground between those 3 campuses, and many more that are online that are not able to access the center on a regular basis. But really, our student voice has told us that we've really been unintentional in serving our online students in some of the ways that they wish to be served. We hear that in a variety of platforms. And so we'd really like to be able to dedicate 1 FTE to solely serving online programs. Our East Side centers, they don't have any of the services that we talked about located at the location. They typically have someone who attends maybe once a month or once a quarter by appointment. Just to be really frank, it's very inequitable just in terms of how some of these students are getting some of the things that we want to be distinct to Central Washington University experience. And so having that full-time staff really ensures that they're coordinating with other offices in Ellensburg and at the community colleges and with their peers around the institution and around the regions. And it's really hard for 1 or 2 FTE to really make that realistic when you're looking at 8 different locations and nearly 1,500 students. It's just, it can't happen at the way that we're proposing.
And are these people going to work 9 to 5?
So I don't think anyone at the University Center works 9 to 5. So the way that the centers are designed, they're really designed for working professionals. And so some of
I taught at Linwood for a year.
Oh, great. Well, then you're familiar. So at the front, I would say the folks who are 9 to 5 are our classified staff that we work with bargaining units, where it's a very complicated process to try to change their schedule outside of those. The rest of the folks, the directors, the faculty, the student employees, the directors, we're all very beyond those hours. The unions are where we really have the inability to change some of those hours. And those are our classified frontline employees.
Right. How many students do you have at Pierce and JBLM?
JBLM is a very small program. We have one program there. It's really serving to get folks into our online and Pierce program as well. At Pierce and JBLM, we probably have a total head count. I want to say it ranges between 380 and 450 FTE per year. That's very similar to the Des Moines and Linwood campus. It ranges between about 380 and 500 FTE between the years. So if I was to estimate and just give you a snapshot, I would say that there's about 1,250 students that are on the west side and about 200, 250 that are on the east side, but that varies year to year and that varies by modality. So that's why we really want to combine these positions between centers and online, because our students migrate between their programs and they have very similar needs in terms of access and being time place bound. And so we think that it's a strategic move for us to partner in this way where we haven't before. Great questions, Terry. I like.
Yeah. No. Well, I like a third of my faculty in my department are on the west side. So.
What department are you in? I'm sorry, Terry.
I'm in management.
Oh, okay.
I'm a marketing professor. So yeah. One of the things that you talked about was a survey. I think you said it was in 2018.
Survey.
And they said, so I think you said tutoring, advising,
yeah, it's
services, and something else. And the one thing that I know of, especially in the west side, is the tutoring. I know that the actual, like the writing center people got, went away. And so in your program somewhere, do you have any facility for tutoring? Especially virtual Zoom kind of, because I know these students are not coming. They're not coming to the campuses really.
No, they're not. So Terry, to be frank, most of our services keep moving online. So I think you all might know that we just recently got a health service assessment of $103 per student per quarter. Those services are all located in Ellensburg, but the University Center and online students will be charged that fee. There is a lack of consultation that happens with some of these things. The tutoring and writing center going away. We were very disappointed, particularly for our international and first generation students. We have over 500 first generation students who need those services. And so I would, as my role advocates, my role is to advocate for the university centers within a larger institutional picture. I would encourage us to look at the structure of how some of this funding is provided and how some of these positions are reporting. We have some opportunities to grow.
Thank you.
Back to that survey, Terry, just so you know, another thing that was mentioned that was very important to students was a variety of classes. And we were happy to share that as an amendment. I can share that report with you. In regards to S&A funding, advising, financial aid, which is not S&A, career services, and tutoring were the primary student services that were desired. And that makes sense, again, for who our population is. Eunice, are you raising your hand? It's good to see you.
Is it my turn? I mean, can I go, Christian?
Yeah, I was just about to call on you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, hi, Laura. Good to see you again.
Me too.
So, I have a not quick question. I have a question that about like like I'm gonna give an example in Edmonds
Mhm.
because I was alumni. So you guys using the building with the Edmonds College,
Mhm.
which is you guys don't have a additional support or additional funding, because when I look at your paperwork, you guys, it seems like you guys don't have any funding from outside.
From outside?
Yeah. Like, do you guys don't have additional support on the funding?
So that's the money that we get. That's our allocation. In regards to the centers themselves, so when you think about that building and that space, so those buildings, we built those buildings with our co-located college partners through capital dollars. So we went to the legislators, over a decade ago, and we built those buildings, and we no longer pay any fees to be in those buildings. It's free space for us. We pay a cleaning fee, and we pay for the paper and the coffee machines. And then what you're not seeing is there's a whole separate budget line for faculty. So faculty and departments, they have an entirely separate budget that is within their own. For S&A fees, what we try to do to maximize our dollars, we do a lot of co-collaborative events. So our community college, for example, at Edmonds, since I know you come from Edmonds, we partnered for doing a first generation celebration. They spent about, I'd probably say $15,000. We might have spent $1,000. And we do those events together so that we can really optimize the student experience, and we can talk about building a community of 2 institutions. They like to call us the university in their community. I think you remember that. And so that's kind of where our outside funds come from. We do a lot of partnership with where we're located. But again, that's hard when you're not physically there. And so that's why we want those positions. Michelle has been running and driving up and down the I-5 corridor pre-COVID, and you just can't get as much done when you're in traffic and you're trying to serve. Her role was really primarily for Des Moines, Pierce, and Linwood. Those are 3 campuses. We have 5. I can't sing her praises enough, and we're here asking for your support to support the work that she's doing so well and to expand it, so that our students can have a great experience.
And one quick question about the students on the west side or east side. I mean, maybe this question maybe for Brandon or Joseph or whoever can answer this. I mean, they supposed to have access to our main campus resources, right? Like our online resources like advising or like student government or club funding. I mean, all west side students or east side students have access to our main campus resources, right? Mikael is here too, so Mikael can answer too.
Any student has access. So Ellensburg students have access to all 8 locations as well. So if you're a central student, it doesn't matter where you are, you have access to those services. But here's the really big difference. If you live in Linwood, which is 2.5 hours with no traffic and with no snow, you're not going to drive to Ellensburg to access these services. You can't. You're working all day, and then you're going to school all night, and you're feeding your family, and then you're trying to do your homework. Just if you're in Yakima, which is our most nearby campus, you're not going to drive a 90-minute trip to go for a 15 or 30-minute appointment. It's just it's not the same thing.
I mean, I get it what you mean, but the thing is, like, the COVID-19, what the COVID-19 teach everybody that everybody can be happen on visually, which is there any work on you guys, like maybe in the future that maybe bringing a program to visual, like advising from the students from the west side, east side to Ellensburg? It's gonna very help. Like, you guys have any planning on that or something?
That's a great question. So I would say that students are choosing experience. If they want an online service, they choose an online program. If they choose a university center experience, they're choosing to be with their peers, to have that network. If they're choosing Ellensburg, they're choosing a residential experience. They're making their choices in the programs that they enroll in, and those services should reflect those choices.
Can I just add to that too? Yes, in the future, we have seen how we can make virtual experiences open up to a broader audience, right? But we also know what it means to have that in-person, high-touch visibility one-on-one with students as well. So there is a ground to be met in the middle. However, to do something just exclusively virtual, let's say with the Ellensburg campus, it is still diminishing that high touch, one-on-one counseling, advising, time spent with students who really crave that type of interaction. So being more open to rather, if it's in person or virtual is a great thing, but not to do expect one modality to work for everyone.
Thank you.
And I believe we have time for about one more question, more or less. Is there any more questions?
Can I ask question that each people ask for each presenter about? Maybe they asked in this group, but I didn't. What's gonna be impact 25% reduction?
What is what?
What is going to be happen if there is a 25 reduction on the S&A funding?
Do you mean a 15% reduction or a 25% reduction?
It was 15 or 25, sorry.
I think it was 15%. I've watched a couple of your presentations.
Sorry, it's 15%. Okay, let's say 15.
But if you want to trick us, Eunice, we'll answer 25.
Oh, I'm not trying to get your money. I'm just asking because no one asked.
Yeah, Michelle, we talked about this. We have an answer.
Yeah, we do have an answer. Well, first, I would have to say that there would probably be a decrease in the collaborations that we have with our host community college campuses because one person can't do that all. There would have to be a decrease in some of the programs. We would have to reduce the numbers of the programming that we're offering for students. And we would also, again, see that decrease in the high touch volume with students and how it would impact their experience and just getting that sense of belonging and making those meaningful relationships, not only with our faculty and staff, but with peer-to-peer as well.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you guys for coming out. With that, we are out of time for questions, but if we think of any more, we'll email you those later.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank
Of
you
course.
so much.
Yeah, have a nice day, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. Let me just fix that there. All right. On to old business. Am I correct in assuming we have no old business? All right. With that, let's go to second call for public comment. Any questions? Eunice, you have something to say?
We have a Parade of Nations next week. Everybody should come to watch. Thank you.
And what day is that again?
Every time I forget, I am the person, I think 24th or 25th, but I will make sure to send you guys flyers. Seriously, like it's 11 p.m. here and they put me in the quarantine for no reason. So I am just stressed out. Sorry, I forget everything.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Any more comments? Messina, I see your hand up.
Yeah, there is actually the College of Arts and Humanities is having an alumni day for students, and so that is actually tomorrow, and I will put in the chat the link to the Zoom and stuff. But if you want to go and see alumni from the College of Arts and Humanities, it's a really great experience to hear from alumni that graduated from your major, and there will be one alum from each major, from each department talking tomorrow. So
Cool. Anything else? Greg, I see your hand up too.
Tomorrow, opening in the Sarah Spurgeon Gallery is the biennial faculty exhibition. Only every 2 years you get to see work by all the faculty. So it'll be up for, through the end of the quarter. Social distancing, mask required. Come on into Randall Hall and check out some art. You can even see a piece by me.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, I would actually like to say something. I believe it was yesterday or the day before, candidates for the next year's student government were just announced. Now, there's no election coming out yet that's next quarter. But I would recommend all the students here just follow those campaigns. I don't remember who's going to be here next year, but it's very important that you guys keep up to date with that, and then spread the word and come to your own conclusion of who you want to represent you guys. All right, and I believe that, any more comments? All right, with that, can I entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I move.
Any second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Messina.
Good to see you all, everybody. Goodbye.
Yeah, motion passed. Have a nice night, guys.
Bye.
Have a great night, all. Great week. Bye.
Bye.
See you, everyone.